Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Welcome back to the Boardroom Club, our innovation series where we bring you up with the close innovators shaping our future. And I am joined here today by my classmate and good friend, Yossi Gormazi.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
So today we're going to space with one of the companies putting Spain in the orbital map. We're thrilled to welcome Raúl Verdú, co-founder and chief business development officer at PLD Space, the private rocket company based in Elche that has made history with its Miura 1 launch and has big plans for orbital success and axis of crewed spaceflight. So Raúl, welcome to the Boardroom Club.
Authentic pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting us.
All right, so now this is a very interesting type of company, but before we dive into the tech and the rockets, we like to rewind the tape a little bit and go back to the early days. So, Raúl, you studied aerospace engineering. What drew you to space, and how did the idea for PLD Space come together?
Yeah, so we start like being or enjoying the hobby to do rocketry, to develop like rockets as a toys. We expand our full time after university and all the weekends to do rocketry, like going to the workshop here in our neighbors and to expend the full afternoon doing parts, very amateur parts at the moment. So we were enthusiasts around the aerospace industry. We were following here from Europe what small companies at that moment like SpaceX or Blue Origin they were doing at that moment back in 2000, like 2005 and 2010, and there was, let me say, no an initiative in Europe similar like what is happening in US at the moment, and we decided to found PLD Space. We decided to create the first SpaceX in Europe. We start as amateurs developing rocketry during weekends.
And you started in 2011, which, like you just mentioned, this was way before private space was a hot topic in Europe and even in the US. And what was the hardest part about launching a startup in a market that didn't really exist anywhere?
Yeah, in my opinion, it was the credibility. Like we were in the university. Imagine two students with no experience, with no environment. Like we were pioneers, and this is good to say, but it's hard to be a pioneer because you need to create everything. You need to convince almost everybody. And I think that we love to say that the most complex subsystem of the vehicle is fundraising. Like to have the credibility to start to do fundraising, to close equity rounds, or to has contracts from governments or from customers. At the very beginning, it was impossible. Like when we present, I remember very well, we present the value proposition the first time in front of our governmental agency. They start to laugh. Like this is impossible. This is a task for large organization, blah blah. And we say, okay, no problem. So gave us a small contract to develop a demonstration of an engine, and we will see what happened. They trust on our, let me say, ambition. They saw what we made in the university days with rocketry, and they trust on us. We won our first €1 million contract, and we developed the first private liquid rocket engine that has never previously developed in Europe. And that was our first, let me say, credibility step. But we need to create it step by step with delivery.
And okay, so the early meetings were not easy at all, as you were mentioned it. But once you convince them, you have to set up a base somewhere. And why Elche, which is a small historical city in the southeast of Spain? Why not one of the big cities like Madrid or Barcelona?
Yeah, no. That was I was trained the same way. It was not a strategical decision. Elche is my hometown. It's also the hometown of my co-founder. And Elche, it's not, let me say, super famous in the world in international people. If you ask at the international level, what is or cities in Spain, you say Madrid, Barcelona, Ibiza. That the three classicals. But that area is very industrial. At the end of the day, a launcher company is very industrial, so we need to do machining workshops, welding, ovens for heat treatment, and that area is very, let me say, it's very industrial. There are industry here and there, manufacturing toys, cars, machines, robots, and things like that. So it's a very, let me say, it's a good environmental. It's a small, very, very small Silicon Valley in Spain. There are a lot of innovative companies here. Not super famous, and it's very, very well located from logistics because we have high speed train from here direct from my hometown to Madrid. We have like a very big international airport like the Alicante airport. So for example, yesterday I was in Dubai and I fly directly to Alicante from Dubai. during night. So, like international connections are super good, and the environmental is super good. We call the province, it's Alicante, and we always do the joke that this is California, because good weather, good food, beach, technology, so it's a kind of a small California here in Spain. And our employees, ask them, but most of them, they are super happy having the family here, because there are also good schools, restaurant, so it's a good night. You are super invited to visit us.
No, of course. That's actually, I take your word for it. Yoshi and I will be very happy to go because I know it's a very nice place, and I have several friends actually that are from Alicante, and they say the same, right? So now moving into the technology, because what you built here isn't just visionary; it's very real and very complex. So you hit a huge milestone with the Miura One, which will launch in 2023. What was that moment like?
It was incredible, like after more than 13 years of hard working in the cave, developing all the subsystems at home, because we develop everything. And when I say everything, it's everything, like engines, structures, avionics, components, all the subsystems, all the ground equipment, release mechanisms, the logistics, the launch pad, all the ground support equipments, so everything. And after so many years, like receiving the feedback of the experts in the industry, say like this is impossible, and succeeding in a maiden flight, that there are not that much companies in the world that they succeed in the maiden flight. It was a release, and I am not proud of that, but I remember all the guys that they say to me that this is impossible. And when I saw the rocket following the trajectory perfectly, I started to cry for 2 days, more or less, because from the personal level, it was an explosion, of emotions. Like you see a team member, you cry, I make a big hugs to everybody. After that, I saw my mom, I cry again. I saw my brother, I cry again. I saw Maria, like from the communication, and I cry again. So it was very, very emotional for us. But we celebrate that 2 days, and that's all. And we start to work in Miura 5. So we are not a company that we are doing parties every day. We are working every day. But of course, Miura One was a pivot moment in the company of our life, and also in my personal life, because we deliver what we promise. That is the unique thing, that we know how to do it.
And Miura One is reusable, right? And which is this technology that some of even of the big players still don't have, right? So how does that lower the cost?
For us, it's mandatory, for our customers, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, our customers, they want to see the satellite in the proper orbit. But for our P&L, it's mandatory to reuse the booster, to reuse a big part of the cost of the launch, because we can have bigger and bigger margins. We can increase the cadence, because sometimes it's not just because of margin. It's because, if you want to launch 50 rockets per year, you need to produce 50 rockets per year if you are not capable to reuse it. So you can increase your cadence of launch. That is also very, very important for us. And in Miura One, it was a technical demonstration of re-entry. We created a trajectory to simulate the condition of a re-entry of a booster. We had on board aero brakes. We test heat shields. We test opening parachute mechanisms. So we test so many things in terms of reusability in Miura One. Miura One softly landed on the sea. Unfortunately, it was impossible to us to recover it, because it was filled of water and is in the deep of the Atlantic Sea. And with that, we had a lot of data to design the booster of Miura 5, because our technology roadmap is very conservative. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel, because our business is about transportation. It's not about to sell vehicles. Like the vehicle is the mean that you need to do the transport service. In the same way, like Amazon is not delivering packages using Formula One cars. They are using vans and trucks. So they innovate the rocket just to be more reliable and cheap than the others.
All right. So now that you're building Miura 5 to reach orbit, can you tell us a couple of innovations respective to Miura 1?
Obvious one is the size. Miura 1 is a 12 meters tall rocket, and Miura 5 is a 36 length. And there are like two main technologies that we already developed in our premises. Is the turbo pump. So we move from an engine that is pressure feed. So we pressurize the tank, and with that pressure, we feed the engine. And for Miura 5, that technology is not feasible to scale it. And we develop our internal turbo pump and our own turbo pump. So that was a big milestone for us. And the second one is that it's a two-stage vehicle, because Miura 1 was a single-stage rocket, just one rocket. You start the engine, you shut down, and that's all. And Miura 5 had two stages, so you need to separate the two rockets flying, and you need to start, the second stage during flight, and this is also a big challenge. How we cover that risk, so testing. We have more than 150,000 square meters of testing facility, and we are testing everything. We test everything several times because our motto is to test as you want to fly and fly just what you tested before. Test is our motto, and this is why Miura 1 was a successful mission since the beginning. And we are trying to replicate in that. We are replicating the same methodology that we follow in Miura 1 for Miura 5. So crossing the fingers to see a successful maiden flight in the coming months.
And now with Miura 5, what is it designed to carry? Are you targeting research, satellites, defense? What verticals are you targeting?
Yeah, everything. We are completely agnostic in terms of mission because at the end of the day, we are launching a spacecraft into orbit, and that's all, and we have customers that they are using the satellite, like the end application, the end user, it will use the satellite for defense, for SATCOM, for navigation, for weather forecasting, for TV broadcasting. There are so many applications, and for us, it's just payload, it's mass. So our customers, they are paying per kilogram launching into space, and what is an advantage for us is that we were the first one in Europe to launch from the private sector from French Guiana, Kourou, and from Kourou we have all the azimuth, so we can launch any inclination, we can launch equatorial mission, we can launch polar mission from the same base. So that allows us to offer to our customer any orbit. That's a big competitive advantage today in Europe.
Okay, and now moving on to your day-to-day, because you're not just building the rockets, you're also there selling a vision, which is what you had the difficulty to do at the beginning, but now you're there. So you're the Chief Business Development Officer, which means that you're responsible for getting customers on board. But how does that look like for PLD, which is a space company?
Yes, no, that's it's a very classical way to sell. So it's not a digital war web page. It's okay, but how you sell this kind of services is like to create relationship with customer, because the challenge today is to sell launch services without the rocket. Because the rocket today is start to appear in the factory, but we spend more than 15 years to develop all the technology to produce the first unit. So you need to face and you need to enter into the market without the product. So imagine a sales guy going to the market with no product, with no heritage. So this is the huge challenge. So you need to create credibility. And this is why this is one of the other reasons to develop Miura 5 before, to create that credibility. Americans say, until you fly, you lie. So this is very important for us. So we're moving from lying to flying. And now we are starting to close our first commercial agreements. But in any case, the customer, they want to see heritage. They want to see Miura 5 flying several times with no problem. An airliner, they are selling reliability. And for us, it's the same. So we need to pass. This is the challenge that we have in front of us. We developed the R&D, and now we need to scale up commercial operations and launch operations. So this is the challenge that we have in front of us, because launching one successful is one history, and to launch 10 per year, it's a completely different challenge, and we are preparing the full organization for that.
Looking into the launch sites, just very recently, I read an article that you had opened a launch site in Oman, which is not that usual maybe for a European company. And you previously used the French Guiana, and then you also have a place in Spain. So can you tell us a little bit about that strategy?
Yeah, for sure. So we are a European company because I am a European citizen, and that's all. But PLD Space is a global organization. So we have customers around the world in the 5 continents, and that market has not, let me say, big barriers. So for us, it's easy to launch a satellite from Japan or from a Latin American country or even US, if it makes sense. Our ambition is to be a global organization, and this is why we are opening 3 spaceports. We already selected 2. Kourou for our local and natural European market. We open one for the Middle East and Asia Pacific market, and we are actively looking for a third one, because to be a multi-spaceport company for us is very important to move the rocket close to the customer. So we want to facilitate the life of our customers, and that will be another big competitive advantage for us. And this is why we are, let me say, covering the full globe. We call it local, from a very local organization in Spain, in Elche, my hometown. We can serve to the world our launch services.
It's very, very cool. And I was just thinking about the more we move into space logistics, what is the role that regulation play in this? We're not even talking about export controls or customs, but what can you tell us a little bit about how does it look like to work with national government?
Yes, no. Today it's a fully, let me say, regulated business. You need to register all the space objects that you are launching there. There are space traffic management rules, because space industry or space business is growing and growing and growing. So all the policymakers, they are starting to put a lot of rules. We are experts in Europe to put rules before to do things, in my opinion. So I want to be like a bit critic here, because I think we need to develop the industry, and after that to put the rules and not the opposite, because if not, you can, let me say, break or decelerate the growing of those business. Today is not a problem because there is just a few operators in the world and it's easy to manage. But for example, one of the big rules that are today in Europe is to be environmental friendly. It's mandatory to not create space debris, to not pollute, all those things. And our systems are fully designed to be a green solution, but it's not our flagship. For sure, we are a green company. We are not polluting. We are taking care of the planet Earth. But our value proposition is not to be green, it's to be profitable.
No, understandable. And but it is true that Spain has a very good advantage with all the renewable energy that we have. So at least on that side, we're covered. But okay, and before I hand it off over to Yossi, I wanted to talk a little bit more about manufacturing and the in-house approach, which you touched upon earlier, right? Because PLD has a very unusual vertical approach. You develop everything: engines, avionics, launch infrastructure. Why do you think this is important?
Was not a strategical decision. That was one of the consequences to be a pioneer. When we started the company, there was no supply chain developed, not in Europe at all. A few players in US offering components on subsystem for launchers. So we need to start to develop everything. We fail a lot subcontracting parts of the rocket because it's hard to us to specify it, because it's the first time that we are doing something. There was big challenges to outsource things, and the consequence, or the result of that, of those consequences, is to start to implement everything at home. Like I remember very well, we try to subcontract the R&D, for example, to do the aluminum welding for our structures, and the provider fails. So we acquire all the machines, we move it to our workshop, and we start to do it at home, and we succeed. Because for a provider, we are just one account, and for us, is dead or alive. If you not deliver the technology, you will not pay the salary. That's small difference. So after 10 years doing that, today we have everything at home. It was a pain, let me say, in the past, because it was not a strategical decision. But after 10 years developing everything with no help, we have everything at home. So today there are like providers approaching, hey, Raúl, I want to deliver to you that, I want to offer to you that as a provider, and say, hey, I developed in the past 10 years, so there is no a lot of slot. Having said that, of course, when I say vertical integrated, maybe we are producing the 80% of the rocket. For sure, we have like amazing providers delivering to us components, help for technology, and raw material. So we are in collaboration with a few partners, but the most of the subsystems and system level technologies was developed and produced, tested, and operated by us.
To do that, you need a lot of specialized talent. So I was wondering, how does that look? Because you said you bring in-house a lot of the welding. Let's just say that. Okay, maybe you have in Elche a lot of industrial areas, but how do you pull that off in Spain, where you suddenly need so many different types of talent?
It's impossible just with imagine my hometown is a small city, so it's impossible. So I think today we are like 19 nationalities in the team, so it's a very international team. Everybody moved here to Elche area, and this is one of the big challenges also. Like to attract talent, to maintain the talent here, to retain the talent in the company is one of the big challenges. We are happy. I call it like the Miura One Heroes, because all those guys are seniors developing stuff at PLD Space. Because I saw so many other companies to have talent with seniority. You need to recruit the classical former SpaceX, former Blue Origin, former NASA, former space shuttle programs, blah blah. And our seniority came from our experience. So this is a huge competitive advantage with us, because they understand, they know how to play as a team member. We are not following like to hire like rock stars here and there, because the rock stars are seated just behind me. We believe to grow the team from bottom to top. Today, our managers they made a summer internship 7 years ago, and that growing of talent is how we believe. Of course, we are recruiting like top talent here and there, because it's impossible to create everything from scratch. So the combination of like super senior and our young talent here with experience, having developed Miura One at home, like PLD Space is the unique company in Europe that we are developing our second rocket, and that make the difference.
That's truly fascinating, Raul. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to bring in my co-host Yossi, who's going to take us deeper into the PLD's global strategy, leadership, and vision of the future of space. Yossi, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Alvaro and Raul. Just like a quick note, I'm a fan of Alicante specifically after Trezeguet joined you. And
Perfect.
definitely. And this is super interesting. And specifically, the launch market is quite competitive. I mean, you got Rocket Labs, Orbex, and a small company called SpaceX. What would make PLD Space the choice for customers?
Yeah, no, it's super easy. It's because the lack of availability. There is a huge gap between offer and demand. There are so many satellite manufacturers and operators that they are not finding the good solution to launch their infrastructure into space. For example, in Europe, there is a big crisis of launchers. Ariane program fails like deeply. They need, let me say, a solution for that because there was like so many strategical satellites from Europe launched in US, so we are losing our sovereignty. So just being a European or just staying in the market with a reliable product, it will be easy to fulfill our manifest. So today, let me say a customer select a launch vehicle first of all because of availability. So they are purchasing Falcon 9 because it's the unique commercial vehicle available. Next, let me say criteria selection for our customer is reliability. So you can be like super cheap or super European, but if your rocket is crashing every single launch, you are out of the market. And the third one, and is super important also, is price. But this is the third one, is never the first one. So we don't want to compete on price. We want to be a premium service, super available and super reliable.
Nice. And do you see any room for consolidation in the space? Could we see maybe any alliances or merger in the future?
Yes, maybe we will see that. We don't want to, let me say, to merge PLDSP with us. We see us as leaders. Maybe we can acquire and to grow inorganically here and there, maybe acquiring a provider, a strategical provider or something like that, or to join force a broker company or something like that. It's not for us because we see or we feel like today we are one of the European leaders and also one of the global leaders in the launcher industry. But like after and sorry for that, but there is a bubble of launch companies today. There are so many under development. When I found the company, there was nothing, and in 2019 there was like 150 companies saying that they want to develop a launch vehicle, and still today, like seeing like new value proposition on that today that bubble is exploding, like literally, because there are so many competitors that they are exploding their rockets in the path or flying. And I think we are maintaining our strategy like very pragmatic, very industrial, and not make a lot of noise because there is a lot of noise in the market. I understand that it's hard for an investor, for a venture capital, for a bank, for an institution to see or to, let me say, to forecast who will be the winner. But we are maintaining our low profile, down the radar, doing our work, and deliver what we promise again. So this is our value proposition today.
Absolutely. And we read also that PLD has now more than 300 employees. How do you lead through this kind of growth in the company and maintain the cohesion of the team?
Yes, so we are doing a big effort, for example, in terms of managing the culture of the organization because foundational PLD Space it was like two crazy guys doing crazy things, and we want to maintain that. We formalize our values, we are repeating our values to everybody. The values for us is very important. So if you don't have the value, you are out of the organization. If you have the value, we update your salary. Like we are trying to maintain that, and we are working a lot to explain to everybody. We have an internal program called Copilot that every single new employee has a colleague selected by the company to help to you to intern that. And this is why we have Ezequiel, our executive president. He has a lot of experience in growing organizations and to professionalize everything because that's the word for me. So we are growing. It's a challenge itself, Yoshi. I want to be very honest. So moving from 50 employees to 300, moving from a workshop of 1,000 square meters to more than 150,000, it's crazy. But we have the talent to do that because, to be honest, I am an entrepreneur. I need to learn so many things, and this is why we are combining, like pioneers with veterans to growth in a sustainable way our organization.
Indeed, and it's quite impressive from the sidelines, I can tell you. And let's zoom out a bit. Europe isn't just your market, it's also your ecosystem, right? What has been the role of ECA and the European government in supporting your journey along the way?
Yes. So let me say we are happy, but we can be more happy. So we close like several contracts. They invest in the equity side of the company. So we are happy for that, but we are still waiting for contracts from at European level. At national level, we wanna. Let me say a large contract for us, like 42 million euros, but we are still waiting for a big European contract or coming from the European Space Agency or coming from the European Commission, that they are super risk averse. They are not betting on the new line. They are waiting to see the rocket flying. And in my opinion, they need to switch the role to be an anchor customer of us. Today, there is a big initiative at European level called the European Launcher Challenge. And maybe, I'm crossing fingers, that will be our first big contract with a European organization. We are preparing our best proposal right now. But until today, we were alone at European level. We have a lot of support at national level, but not that much at European level. We want to switch that. They are waiting to see Miura 5, but I think they need to bet before, because when Miura 5 will be there, maybe everything is fully booked, and I will say no, but I think we are waiting that from our European institutions for the moment.
Nice. And maybe a follow-up. Do you see a PLD as an anchor company for future Spanish space ecosystem, same as Rocket Lab has been for New Zealand?
Yeah, for sure. I think we see us as today our size is medium size. So, but we want to create a very large organization. So, and we want to attract, we want to help the others. Around PLD Space, there was creating so many startups in Spain that they are super successful. Also, former employees developing their companies. I am very proud that we are creating that ecosystem at national and European level. And I think PLD Space can be one of the leaders to traction from the others to develop more and more and more and more things that it will be good for everybody, because we see us as a leaders, but we need the ecosystem, because being the leader of nothing with no customers, with no providers, has nonsense. So I think we can play, let me say, a very interesting role at European for sure, and also at global level.
I want to close now the business side with a bit of reflection and advice, because after all, you're an entrepreneur, but not, let's say, normal entrepreneur in the space industry, which is quite fascinating. So what would you wish you knew maybe earlier in your journey?
Of course, like the classical one, like more money, more support. But I think to get support, you need to deliver something. We close financial rounds when we deliver a technical milestone. It's never happened in the opposite. So you are not waiting here to receive money to do things. You need to do something, and after that, you close a financial round, for example. Maybe what I do different at the beginning is to acquire seniority talent earlier. Like Ezequiel joins the company in 2018. If I refound the company today, I will call Ezequiel day one. Because as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of skills to push, to convince everybody, to sell the vision, to sell the dream, but you need professionals. So Raúl Torres and myself, we grow the company from 0 to 50 employees with no senior level at C-level. Maybe this is one of the lessons learned from us.
If you need to give to young professional advice, and specifically young professional that want to enter the space industry, what advice would you give?
Accept the skills that you don't have and find a guy that they have it, like to complement your talent. I am completely different in front of Raúl Torres. Raúl Torres is completely different of Ezequiel. Ezequiel is completely different to me, different skills, different styles. And I think the combination of that, because we are respecting all to us, there is a very good ambient between everybody at C-level. So I think one of the recommendations is to not underestimate seniority and to balance, as I mentioned before, like veterans and pioneers.
Amazing. And now I want to take this discussion to rapid fire chats, some fun question that we have to finish this interview. So
Okay.
First question, if you could have a coffee with any historical figure, space related or not, who would it be and why?
Oof. Very good. Maybe to talk tranquil with Wayne Shotwell, current president of SpaceX. I had a short conversation back in 2015 because she attended to an innovation event here in Spain. And she said in public, like, it will be easy to put a satellite into orbit, but it will be super hard to do profit with that. And I put a tattoo, let me say a theoretical tattoo in my arm, to say like the challenge is not to launch a rocket, it's to be profitable.
Amazing. And what's your go-to movie or even a good series that you watch or read recently?
Recently, to be honest, I don't have that much time. So I think my favorite movie it's Matrix. So science fiction. I love that part.
The first or the second one, though?
Yeah, no, always the first. The first and the others are okay, but the first one, changed my life, and I start to learn a lot. Let me say, to be super interested about technology and science fiction.
I can tell you that actually for me it was the second one when they had this famous scene on the, I think was it in the two track that going into each other. It was
Yes, yeah,
amazing.
that's the second one with
Yeah.
the waves. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you follow any sports or any favorite team?
I am not, let me say, following. I am fan of the Elche Club de Football. It's my local, my hometown club de football team. It's in second division, but we are in first position. So next season, crossing fingers, we will be in La Liga. So super happy for that.
Nice. And then Alvaro will invite you to Bernabeu.
Yeah, perfect.
And what keep you motivated every day?
Delivering and to keep off my team.
And if you were not doing space, if you could do anything else, what would it be?
Motorsports. I love
Motorsport.
motorsports. Sorry for that. Yes, I started to study industrial engineering because I want to build, like a Formula One engineer or something like that. And I met Raúl Torres, and he showed me a vehicle that is by far more faster than a race car. That is a rocket, and this is why I switched my career to motorsports into aerospace.
Any favorite like Formula One driver maybe? I
Fernando
bet it will
Alonso.
be Carlos Sainz or
Fernando
Fernando.
Alonso. Sorry
Fernando
for that.
Alonso
I
always.
know that Fernando has haters and lovers, but I am a good fan of Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, definitely a legend of the game. And
Yeah.
if you had to send one Spanish item into space to represent your country, what would it be?
Oh my God, jamón. I don't know, like, no idea. Like, yeah, maybe to send a jamón. Because it's always a joke. But in Miura one we launch a cheese. I don't know if you know it because it's a joke from the Americans when they developed the first rockets. There was a sketch coming from the Monty Pythons saying like the moon is made by cheese, and they put a cheese in every single maiden flight. So we put a cheese in the maiden, and maybe in Miura 5 we can put a jamón.
Definitely. And Raul, it's been amazing to learn about your journey from your student days to now literally launching space into another stratosphere. So we are cheering for you and appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. We learned a lot. I learned a lot. And Alvaro, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yossi, and thank you, Raúl, for joining us. And for everyone, please stay tuned. We have a bunch of other interesting companies, fascinating industries like cybersecurity, fintech, quantum computing, VC, and semiconductors. Thank you, everyone.